the organizers asked me, can't you just come and build the installation in situ during the event? The work that they were looking at had taken me 2 years to complete. There's this crazy balance we have to constantly look for between legacy and reach, between archival quality and ease of shipping. But I'm questioning now the disposability of installation art, because if the main number one product of installation art is the experience at the location where it is shown, is installation art a disposable art medium? Welcome to the Installation Art Podcast, the world's number one and only podcast about installation art and the people who work with it. I am your host, Anastasia Parmson, and today we have a little bonus episode. I wanted to come on and share a behind-the-scenes experience of a recent residency I did. It was something new and different, a big experiment for me, and I wanted to take you along and share what I learned from this. But before we dive in, I wanted to read this really cool review that we got on Apple Podcasts. I'm always encouraging listeners to go and leave us ratings and reviews because it really helps new listeners find the show. So someone from Canada wrote, "Informative and inspiring. I am learning so much. Thank you, Anastasia, for creating this podcast. It is exactly what I was looking for and needed to give me the push to get experimenting and think bigger." Love that. Thank you so much for your feedback. And if you haven't left a review yet and you are on Apple Podcasts, please go and do so. You can do that on the main show page. When you scroll down below the recent episodes, that's where you leave the rating and review. And on Spotify, you can leave a rating and you can also now leave comments on individual episodes. So that's a cool way to engage and share your immediate thoughts. And of course, there's YouTube comments as well. But let's get into the story about my experimental installation residency. I was kindly invited by Draw Space, which is a newish artist-run exhibition space in Sydney dedicated to contemporary drawing, to occupy their gallery in between two exhibitions. And we planned this, I think, well over a year in advance. When I was thinking what the concept should be and what I should do during this short residency, I kept thinking of an experience that I had a few years ago when somebody from the UK invited me to show my work there. They wanted me to do a sort of a pop-up installation for a 1-week event. They were very excited and very enthusiastic, and I was a bit skeptical because not that long before that, I had shipped a large portion of my works from New Zealand to Australia, and I knew that it cost a lot of money and it would cost even more post-COVID to send things to the UK. So lo and behold, when the shipping quotes came in, it was excruciatingly expensive. Plus, they have to fly me out there and accommodate me so that I can install everything because my work is always in some way site-specific. So I'm thinking, could I find somewhere in Europe to store those works so that they only have to pay for one-way shipping? And then I'll hope for the best that someone else in Europe might want to show it at some point. Instead, the organizers asked me, can't you just come and build the installation in situ during the event? Kind of like a performance where the spectacle is me building an installation in 1 week. First of all, the idea of working in front of people is mildly horrifying to me. I really don't like the idea of people watching me work. I like to put on an audiobook and go deep into my hermit introvert mode. That is the most enjoyable part of my process by far. But also, my work looks weird when it's in process. I wouldn't want the half-baked stuff to be seen by the public and have it be the only impression they've had of my work. But most importantly, the work that they were looking at and that they were excited about and wanted to show, that had taken me 2 years to complete. The work is quite involved and time-consuming and painstaking. It doesn't help that I'm a perfectionist, so I had to say no to that opportunity, and it was not a very pleasant experience. So that is what came to mind when I was thinking about what to do for this residency at Drawspace. And I thought, why not use this opportunity as an experiment to see if it's actually possible to make something in situ in a short amount of time? I could use this as a platform to explore the gap between effort, time, material, and perceived value in installation art. Is there a correlation between the amount of time and effort you put in, the kinds of materials you use, and value provided, either commercial value of the final product or visual experience for the viewer? So these were the parameters that I had to work with. I had 4 days in the space, and I wanted one of those days to be an open day where people can actually come in, look at the final result, and have a conversation about it. The space itself is quite large. It's a big space to fill for site-specific work. And I also decided right from the get-go that I had to use cardboard for this project, specifically reclaimed cardboard that would normally end up just going into trash. Cardboard is easy to work with, to build three-dimensional large pieces from. It's cheap, easy to find, so that's what I had to go with. Drawspace was quite keen to involve their local community, and so we asked people to donate large cardboard boxes. I also somehow knew from the get-go that I wanted to try making a kitchen, which I've never attempted or even considered before. So I knew that we needed large pieces of cardboard to make the life-size kitchen appliances. I thought, well, since I'm experimenting, let's just go all out and do all the things that I've never done before. And another part of that was involving other people in the process. So I asked for volunteers to come and help. And honestly, I didn't expect anyone to come. And in my mind's eye, I saw myself on the floor during the open day, just alone cutting up cardboard and building things. And that is exactly what would have happened were it not for the volunteers and friends who came to help build and paint the pieces for this kitchen. So lesson number 1, no, there is no way to build a life-size kitchen installation in 3 days without extra hands. One of the Drawspace board members came in and was a huge help in painting. My friends and fellow artists came and helped construct some of the larger and smaller pieces. So we did manage to build and paint pretty much everything I had hoped to have in 3 days. It helped that I had bought a huge desk and hoarded the big cardboard pieces it came with. And I also painted a bunch of cardboard white ahead of time, which came in really handy because painting was definitely the hardest part of the whole project, waiting for the paint to dry, especially. And the size of the cardboard pieces available really dictated how much and what things we were able to construct. Another thing that I prepared was a bunch of basic construction drawings showing the dimensions and how to cut and assemble the cardboard pieces for each element that was going to be in the kitchen. And that came in really handy for people to follow without having to defer to me or ask me too much, so that I could also focus on the building and the drawing parts. When it comes to the quality of the output, these kinds of time limits reminded me of the good old university years where I was the queen of leaving assignments to the last minute and then pulling all-nighters to have something to present. It really felt like the polar opposite of how I normally work nowadays. Firstly, to relinquish control and trust others to make what they make, and that's fine and good enough. And then I also had to keep telling people and reassuring them, like, that'll do. Don't worry about fixing that or making things look better, or don't worry about precision and so on. It was all kind of like, oh yeah, that's fine. Sure, that will do. That's good enough. Everything was a bit wobbly, not straight, kind of vite fait, as French say. Also, the reclaimed cardboard was not an ideal material to work with. It had bends and cuts in all the inconvenient places. The scale of things had to be adjusted because of the restrictions, so nothing was to scale and nothing was matching up with each other the way it would in a normal kitchen. And all of this was kind of perfect in hindsight, because the inspiration for this particular kitchen project was my childhood experience of shared Soviet kitchens. So nothing was supposed to be matching. Nothing was supposed to be in good condition. And the wobbles and the bends in the cardboard were, I guess, reflective of the quality of the subject we were depicting. The goal for the first 2 days was to build and paint everything as quickly as possible. Then on the third day, we focused on building smaller items, which in hindsight, I should have also prepared in advance, because even though the things are small, they're still time consuming, and anyone who works with different scaled works knows this. Little things sometimes take even more time than big things, and yet you can't price them according to your hours spent working. So things like boxes to go on shelves, tins to go in the fridge, all of that was made in a bit of a rush, lacked 1 or 2 coats of paint, so the cardboard was still peeking through. And there were a few things that I wish I had time to make that just didn't get done. And then I only really had half a day to do all the drawing, which normally I like to take my time with and think, make one line, step back, where should the next line go? There wasn't time for any of that. I just had to make things happen. So it was a rush job, and I just had to draw so that it doesn't look bare and unfinished. But by my standards, the drawing was not good. I had to come in early on the open day to do more drawing, and I also had to do a bit more drawing while people were already coming in, which was not ideal because, like I said, I like to draw on my own, and it's kind of, even though it's something I can do while listening to audiobooks and stuff, it's still kind of a deep focus activity for me. And so chatting with people and giving them my attention is not possible while drawing. So something to note for future projects. But in the end, we had an installation of a kitchen and we did it. It got made. There was a sink and a stove, a big dining table, a big fridge with the door open and stuff in the fridge. I mean, let's be honest, the final installation was factually inaccurate. I made a microwave oven just because it was something really cool to make out of cardboard. There is no way there would be a microwave oven in a Soviet kitchen, okay? There were other incongruities, and then one of the audience members asked me, "What makes this a Soviet kitchen?" And I looked around and I was like, you know what? Because it's what it is, made from the materials it is, and then rendered in black and white, I guess there is no way to discern that it's a Soviet kitchen versus just a shabby grandma's kitchen from Australia or somewhere, you know? Very interesting point. Because Draw Space is in a busy street with a lot of foot traffic, there were quite a few people who came in on the open day just off the street to have a look and take photos and talk about the work. It was interesting for me to note that people's reaction to the cardboard installation was very similar to people's reaction to my normal long process, slow building, archival quality installation. And people did not realize that it was something vite fait, built in a few days. When they found out, they were even more impressed. It was kind of interesting to make a project that was just going to be on show for one day and exist in the world for one day. And if you couldn't make it there in person on that day, then you'll never see that work again, except in photos and videos. Because at the end of the day, I just threw everything in a pile and stepped right into it. And then my friends jumped in and we demolished and flattened every piece. And honestly, that felt kind of good. And sure, when the installation is up there and people are coming in and you feel kind of sorry about just destroying them and putting them in the trash, but it also felt really liberating as somebody who makes installation art and has a storage space full of pieces to not worry about what am I going to do with all these, especially like imagine the kitchen. Those things are big. Even some people who came in, they were like, "Oh, you're going to throw it away? Oh no, can I have it?" I'm like, "Sure, come in at 5 p.m. and pick it up." And then they're like, "Oh, but where would I put it?" Exactly, you know? So it was kind of liberating to make an installation just temporarily and then poof, it's gone. It actually made me think that maybe making installations for pop-up events that are up only for a few days, maybe a week, maybe cardboard is the right material to use. And maybe it's more about the visual experience than about the quality of the work. Maybe that is the smart way to do this kind of installation work. Also, because cardboard and paper are so intrinsically linked to drawing, that if I'm making drawing installations and a lot of people who look at my work think that it is made of paper anyway, then maybe that's what I should be using. In my experience so far, the main value in installation art is the site-specific experience for the audience. And as we've heard from many guests, in most cases, it is not something that is commercially viable as an end product. Often it is not something that is sold or sellable or easily acquired by institutions or even less private collectors. Perhaps installation art is something that people would pay to experience, but not pay to own. And if that is the case, then maybe installation art doesn't have to be made of archival materials. It's a delicate balance, isn't it? Because ideally, you want your work to be shown multiple times in various places, in which case, maybe fragile materials like paper and cardboard aren't ideal because, like, on the one hand, sure, it's lighter, it's easier to transport. On the other hand, it's a lot easier to damage. And once it's damaged, it's harder to fix or restore, especially if it's got like moisture damage. But also, as artists, don't we want our work to live beyond our own lifespan? For me, archival quality has so far been important, and I've been trying to improve and develop the quality of my production and fabrication. But at the same time, as many, many art people in Australia know, we are very isolated here. So if I want people to experience my work on the other side of the world, and if the only way to achieve that at the moment is to go ahead and build those temporary installations for people to experience, then maybe that is something worth considering. I have pieces in storage that I've kind of grown past and I don't know what to do with them anymore. Had I made them out of cardboard, maybe I wouldn't feel super bad if they got damaged or if I had to make room and throw them out, because it's not too difficult to remake for a new project. And each time you would just get better at it and improve your technique and your process. I feel like installation artists are in a kind of a catch-22 bind, because you have to be at a certain level in your career to show your work internationally. Somebody somewhere has to be willing to pay for the transportation, and that's expensive. And therefore, your work has to be worth that much more. So this residency really raised questions about the expectations that are often unrealistic that are placed on installation artists. There's this crazy balance we have to constantly look for between legacy and reach, between archival quality and ease of shipping, between being personally present during the installation process and planning it out and outsourcing your work in a way that can be made beyond your lifespan, or where you don't have to be there, or where your work can be shown and installed in multiple places at once. And then the big question, where is the actual value of installation art? Is it in the experience? Is it in the object, the workmanship, the time you've invested, the skills you've learned in the process, the dialogue with the space that it's installed in? Because sometimes those things are mutually exclusive. Or if they're not, then making that kind of work and showing that kind of work and storing it in between shows can be really expensive. If you're somebody who enjoys installation art, like I do, you love seeing it, you love experiencing it, you will go and take photos of it and share it on your social media. It's easy to forget that in between those times where people can actually enjoy and experience the work, it has to be packed up and unpacked, transported to the exhibition, away from the exhibition, stored. And if you're making solid objects or use any kind of heavy materials, the sturdier your work, the more expensive all of that is. I hope you will reach out and share your thoughts on this, but I'm questioning now, the disposability of installation art. Because if the main number one product of installation art is the experience at the location where it is shown, especially when it comes to pop-up events or temporary short-term exhibitions, is installation art a disposable art medium? In conclusion, I am very glad I had this opportunity to experiment. I didn't expect a finished product at the end of this residency, but somehow we managed it and it looked good to an untrained eye. So the experiment answered this question. Is it possible to build an installation in 1 week? Yes, it is possible, especially if you have help and appropriate materials. If you don't have to be measured and precise and you can improvise, it's totally possible to build an installation in 1 week or less, even if under normal circumstances it would take many, many months. So now I'm left wondering, should I start incorporating cardboard as part of my normal practice? Because these kind of pop-up installation project proposals, every once in a while, something like that still pops up in my inbox. And so far, I've just had to say no to them unless they want to ship my work, which no one wants to do. Maybe this is something that I can start saying yes to and do in a different way now, and not worry about the output and what to do with it afterwards, and just recycle it at the end of the event. I also am now wondering if cardboard isn't an appropriate material sometimes to build furniture pieces. When you work as an artist with furniture or pieces that look like furniture, it's a lot easier when it comes to the discourse and fielding people's questions about your work, and also just the way people perceive your work when the furniture pieces in question are not actually functional. It's difficult sometimes to draw that line between art and design when what you're making can be perceived as functional pieces. So in a way, it's better to make a table out of cardboard because it's just a sculpture of a table. It's not a real table. I know this can sound like a lot of semantics, but really, in a practical sense, that has been a challenge for me in the past. Return listeners might remember that every once in a while, I'll ask a guest about the logistics of doing a residency as an installation artist. Like, how do you do it? Do you bring all your tools? What do you make there? What do you do with the stuff you made there in the end? Well, now I have a good answer to my questions. If I go on an overseas residency, I can just make stuff out of cardboard. It can be the final work or it can be seen as a prototype, but I don't have to worry about bringing my power tools or having a wood workshop on site or shipping anything back. What a relief. What a revelation to me. Honestly, this has been a liberating discovery. Like, this is perfect. This is a great solution for doing a residency as an installation artist. I'm sorry if you weren't able to come and experience this open day and see the work in person that existed only for 1 day. Now it is trash and in the recycling bin. A few interesting conversations were had, and the thoughts those sparked I've tried to articulate here today. So thank you everyone who did come. And a special thank you for everyone who came and pitched in and helped. It would not have been possible without you guys. You know who you are. And thank you for listening to this bonus episode about my experimental installation residency at Drawspace Sydney. I hope it gave you a little insight into the process of building installation art and questions around it. If this sparked any thoughts about your own practice or your experience with installations, whether it's regarding residency experiences, material challenges, the question of ephemerality or disposability, and the value of installation art, I would love to hear from you. You can get in touch via DM on Instagram or leave me a voice message at speakpipe.com/installationartpodcast, or use the contact form on our website, installationartpodcast.com. Who knows, your story might even be featured in a future episode. And if you enjoyed this bonus episode, don't forget to follow the show wherever you're listening so you never miss new episodes. Thank you for listening, and until next time.